That face you make, it's like a deer caught in the headlights. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good.
Ladies and gentlemen, it
Um,
is Saturday morning, 11 a.m., the Game Bites podcast, the greatest game podcast in the world. I can make that claim. I'm allowed to. And Alex, is it true that you have strangers in your living room?
oh my god. I have no idea. You leave one window unlocked, and now you have to climb over people when you go to make coffee.
Oh, California, right? I mean, here's a question for you. First off, I hope you had a good week. I know you have a lot of exciting things happen. You're about to fly to the Philippines, right?
Yeah,
Okay, and you're getting married.
again on 15th.
So
I was gonna say like Thursday, but it's like Wednesday for you while it's Thursday there. So, yeah,
time zones, you're traveling. So same woman, just celebrating with the family, right?
yeah,
Because
her family.
yeah. So yeah, you officially got married here in the States. What was that? About 6-7 months ago, 5 months ago, 4 months, August. Okay, I know that's close. Okay, and you did
They're in
confirm.
San Francisco.
You did confirm that you're not going to eat balut at the wedding.
I'm not gonna eat balut. I'm not gonna do it.
It makes me sad, but I get it. Now, my second question for you is: when did you start drinking coffee?
Oh, this is Welch's grape juice.
You told me you were drinking coffee.
I said you have to step over people if you're going to get coffee, but it doesn't mean I actually got coffee. No,
Okay.
it's coffee. This is cold brew, dude. Probably 2018.
You started drinking it? Okay, because I remember you were all about caffeine pills. Like, straight
Yeah,
up
you just grind them up and put it in here, add some water, and it's pretty much the same thing.
instant coffee. Nice. Interesting. So it's been an interesting week. I know you're busy, and I know that you're about to get on a plane and change time zones and travel into the future. But there's been a lot happening. So I think starting off, I'm sure everyone's aware the Game Awards happened. Now, do you watch these typically every year? Do you pay attention to them? Do they interest you?
I do not.
Okay.
Just like most of our generation, I like the highlights and need the information fed to me as soon as I want it, and I can move on with my life.
It's on my time, not your time. Give me the cliff notes and get out of here. I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And show some ads in between because they're inescapable.
There are ads. There are definitely always ads. I forget when this transition started happening, but Jeff Keighley, the man in charge of it, I give him props because he started to realize there's an opportunity to almost take some of the zest away from E3 with announcements. So as much as this is the Game Awards, I don't think people really watch it for the awards because there's an inner circle of, reporters and journalists that tend to vote who they want to win, which is fine. It's not like anyone's ever won that's like ridiculous. Like Elden Ring won Game of the Year. That's worthy to me. That makes sense that they won Game of the Year. That was a marvelous game, marvelous design. But I think most people watch it for the announcements nowadays. There was a lot of big announcements.
Yeah, is there even usually that much? That's the only thing I saw on Reddit was just flooded with like tons of game announcements. And you're right, it pretty much was like an E3 showcase as far as like new game trailers and everything, but sprinkled in there were some awards.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure when it started to change. I know that E3 started to struggle in the mid to late 2010s where they started to open more to fans, and E3 was like always a trade show, which made sense. It's for the people in the industry. And we benefit from that as fans, but as fans started to get into it more, it started to be more of a question of like, what do we give the fans? And so people started to kind of favor things more like PAX. And then I remember I was getting on an airplane to Chicago, and at the Game Awards like 6 years ago, Microsoft used it to announce their Xbox One X. So like they're a PS4 Pro for that generation.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, they've had some pretty big announcements, but there was rumors that they were going to have like over 30 announcements before it happened, and they delivered. There was a lot of awesome announcements. So I think be transitioning into that, do you have anything that stood out to you on the immediate like list that I sent you?
As far as game announcements, I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, and this is as most game announcements, you're usually watching some footage that's like super cinematic and not representative of the gameplay, and that curve is kind of flattening out as the generations get better and better as far as graphical presentation. But I don't think anything hit harder for me than that Diablo 4 trailer.
There you go.
And it's
Yeah.
in no way representative. There was like part of the trailer, there was like a top down, and when all the spawns are like running across this bridge, and there's like these lava waterfalls going down, like that was like the closest thing. It was a top down.
Yeah.
But like that Diablo 4 trailer, that does it for me.
Yeah. Diablo 4 is interesting because I think you and I both played Diablo 3 a ton. On the PS4, like we went to the Greek Food Festival one weekend, and then we just played it like a ton afterwards online. And I beat that game a ton too. It looks great, but people that were sour on 3 seem to be happy about 4 because in some ways it's getting back to its roots with its presentation. You know, it's not as colorful. You know, in a lot of ways, it has a dark, dour feel, but it also feels like it's both old and new, which excites me. Like, I think the game's going to do well, but there's time will tell.
Yeah, they would have to do some pretty sketchy, like, tons of microtransactions or some crazy leveling curve and everything. But if they just capitalize on what the success of 3 and just, I don't know, do some minor tweaks and stuff, I'm completely interested in it now.
Yeah. And I know that I think we talked about this a few episodes ago, but they have said that they plan on using that as a platform of sorts where you're just going to get a lot of expansions to it over the years too. So it's a game they plan on supporting, and I think it's a game that Microsoft probably wants to own.
Oh gosh,
because
it's a nice transition.
Well, I don't know if we're going to transition there yet, but Game Pass in general, like imagine if you could just get that game on Game Pass, like it's ideal. But yeah, Diablo 4, June 6, 2023. So that's gonna be out. That's gonna be out. And like I said, people were people were talking highly of it. There was a lot of announcements in the beginning that I think were really hitting me. And I think one, keeping with the theme, Hades 2 announcement trailer. No one expected that. It's what's the name of the studio? That's not a large studio. They don't pump out games every other year. But when did Hades come out? Like 2020 was finally full release off of their beta from Steam.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Oh, so about
Didn't
3.
it get Game of the Year?
It did win Game of the Year last year, I think, or 2 years ago.
I don't know what would have won last year. Maybe it was last year.
Not sure either. But yeah, Hades is an award winner in the past, and Hades 2 is coming out. I think it's the protagonist's sister. They're kind of switching up the visual style a bit, but I think a lot of people seem to come away from that game. That a lot of people came away from the Game Awards really excited about that, which I get. The game is marvelous. So
yeah, the game was wildly successful. I mean, I think more people liked it than were turned off by the gameplay. I think it, as far as like a roguelite, I feel like that was a lot of people's first introduction to it just because of the success of Hades. So I mean, this game's like a shoe-in for success. Yeah, it is weird. It was a weird, unexpected sequel, but I'm glad they're capitalizing on it though.
Yeah, it's a game you could easily see them doing a DLC for or some type of expansion, but they're doing a standalone, and I think it makes sense. And I think you are right. I've heard other people talk about that. People that aren't big on rogue games or aren't big on isometric action games, Hades was a game that got them interested. And I think it's a combination of the writing, the themes, just the gameplay overall. Like it's both challenging, but it there's a meta progression that works really well in that game that better than most rogue games I've played. It incorporates that sense of progression into the storyline as well. Like everything makes sense that you unlock and that you get to do from your 7th run or your 8th run onward.
Seems like a crazy web of story building though. Like it's another that same type of narrative. As far as every time you die, I guess there's other NPCs at the spawn and commenting on your what you just happened and stuff. It just seems so complex.
Yeah.
As opposed to like just I don't know. I'm not saying anything bad, but like Horizon Zero Dawn, it's point A to point B. There's nothing, no digressions and stuff in between. Nothing to comment on. So I think it's interesting.
There's a variability of potential, right? And story crafting when it comes to games, you have what they call, I think, story mapping. I read a little bit about Witcher 3's production, and they talked about like how sophisticated they got with story production and their mini quests and their side quests and all that. That's a lot of work to make that work well and not make it be a bunch of just mundane side quest and all that stuff. So that's definitely not easy. Like to think through there as much as it's creative in the sense of let's make an interesting story. There's also a logical sequencing part that you have to kind of think through, like an equation. Like if X happens, then we have to do this. If this happens, we have to do this, and it can't interfere with this potential variable that could have been unlocked here or there. You know, it's and all that requires a lot of testing too. So it's not just like, all right, yeah, we did it, now let's release it. Like that's not gonna work. Yeah. Hades is a game I honestly still need to beat. Did you beat that game? No.
I got to. There's a fight in. Is it Eden? Is Eden one of the places?
Yeah, I got like to the third or fourth world, but it would make sense.
That's what I think it is. Yeah, I think it's like right after some lava centipede or something. Then you go to Eden.
Yeah.
And there's a famous person there that you fight. Maybe two of them, or maybe it's a roll of if you face one or two. I think it is a random chance. I can never get past those guys. And like obviously something else came out. You know, that distracted me from the game.
Yeah.
But no, I never beat it. But now I want to. I have that on the Switch. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna take that on the flight, dude. I'm gonna play that on the flight. I really didn't. That's a digression, but I'm gonna finish Hades on the. I'm gonna be on the plane for 26 hours in the next 2 weeks. I'm gonna beat Hades.
That's a game you could probably beat on a plane flight to the Philippines. I tried to do Skyrim once, but Hades probably.
That's another good idea. I wanted to download the entire Kingdom Hearts collection just to listen to that music on the plane and play it through, but it's a cloud version for the Switch, so I was upset. But yeah, dude, I'm gonna play Hades. I gotta remember to re-download it.
Hades is a good choice. Yeah, I don't know if you have luck streaming on on the plane Wi-Fi. That'd be frustrating. But talking about good roguelike games, Hades is, I think, top notch. My personal favorite, though, they got a big announcement too. I know you like this game as well. Dead Cells. So Dead Cells cannot die. I talked about this over the summer on Game Bites before you joined, that there was a roadmap that the team released essentially saying, hey, we have a lot of content coming out for this game still. And they've been delivering a ton of new content throughout the fall. And they just announced something that I know a few people that, oh, Dead Cells seems cool, but I'm not going to buy it. But now they're buying it. Castlevania crossover. You are going to play through the Castlevania castle. You're going to be able to go against Dracula. I'm pretty sure you'll be able to play as the Belmonts or Acullard as well.
Belmont. Did Dead Cells recently get a expansion or DLC where you can play as other characters from other games? Is that this, like Shovel Knight?
They did get that. That was recent. This is separate from that, though. This is a whole another expansion.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. Like Dead Cells it's turning into the Fortnite of roguelites, where it's just like, hey, anything's possible. Yeah, I know. The more the merrier for anyone who wants to keep playing that game. Yeah, right now, I'm gonna go play it again.
I would say download Dead Cells and Hades. Those are two great games. Dead Cells is probably some of the best combat for a game of that style to me. Side-scrolling, Metroidvania. I know it's rogue-based, but to me, I think of the Castlevanias on the GBAs when I play that game. And it just makes perfect sense to do a Castlevania crossover, because if they release... I would say Konami, give Castlevania to that company and let them make their own Castlevania game as well for Switch. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was just thinking about, if they could do a storyline with something about a time loop, like to turn a Castlevania game into more of a Dead Cells game. I mean, they're gonna do that, but like some kind of time loop or traveling or torture. But I mean, that's kind of what Hades is going through too. I mean, that's what all roguelites are. It's die and rebirth and die, rebirth and restart.
Knowing Konami, if they saw a way to make it a rogue game, they'd probably find a way to monetize the heck out of you too. They love that pachinko money. But yeah, I'm hopeful of that, because at the very least, it gives me hope Konami's saying, we have these IPs we're sitting on. Let's do something with them. And the fact that they had someone on their team say, yeah, let's work with Dead Cells. At least they know there's someone that knows something about gaming there. So that got me pumped. The trailer was cool. It was like a short animated trailer, but it was fully fleshed out, like references to Symphony of the Night, references to all those classic games. So that has me excited. There was just tons and tons of crazy announcements, I think, to games though. I mean, it was like, again, over 30. Those are the ones that really stood out to me in the beginning. There's a prequel to Bayonetta happening, which frankly, by the looks of it, I could care less about because it seems very different from traditional Bayonetta. But I mean, Bayonetta 3 just dropped.
Describe it. I didn't see it.
Bayonetta Origin.
How is
So
it?
so apparently in Bayonetta 3 there's these mini games that happen, and in the mini games they seem like they're more isometric top down kind of was like a Diablo type combat. And this is very much a prequel, like storybook type of feel of like Bayonetta as like a younger kid, and she's going into this woods, into this forest to try to find her mother, I think. So it's definitely a different perspective, like that sense. It doesn't have a lot of the other themes that Bayonetta typically has,
Like
but
booties
yeah,
and Fight Club.
the ridiculous mature themes that sell the game, right? And
Yeah, I know. That's why I had no idea where you were going with that. But I was going to say, as the origins, does she have more clothes on? And then you brought up kids, and then then I'm thinking, oh yeah, having
yeah,
the kids being
so they're
her being a kid is a prequel to what you're saying, pretty mature themes.
so they
Interesting.
I don't know if that what the idea there is, but it just surprised me that so soon after Bayonetta 3
Yeah,
they're
that's true.
they're doing this. And yeah, so that was an announcement that people were surprised by. I mean, something that
Dude, what do you think if this was going to be a spin-off that was already made, but to ease people into it, they included some of that gameplay in Bayonetta 3? What do you think are the chances of that happening?
I think it was definitely in production already, for sure. I think at some point when they were making Bayonetta 3, they were making these types of mini games for it, and someone was like, we could probably make a full game out of this. We could probably charge less of a price, but we can make a full game out of this, and it could be of this nature. I mean, think of I heard this on Game Mess Mornings with Jeff Grubb. Toad Treasure Tracker Hunter, Toad,
Mhm.
the Toad game that was it was a mini game in Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U, the
Okay.
Toad Treasure Tracker, but then it became its own full game as well. And there's precedence for that happening in the space where like some type of unique mini game
Gwent.
happens. Yeah, exactly. Um, so I'm not sure what came first, where the prequel was an idea and they incorporated it into 3, or they were
They're just
working.
like at the game meeting. They're like, "All right, Matt, what did you bring to the table for like just some sort of little mini game to kill time halfway through the game?" And he brings up like this. It's like, "I've been working on this for like 8 months." Like, geez, Matt. All right, well, we're just gonna sell this one too.
Yeah, make some slices of this, but yeah, it's 30 hours long. Yeah. Speaking of Gwent though, mobile game of the year. You know what won?
Marvel Snap.
It,
Marvel Snap.
Marvel Snap on
No
mobile game
wonder
of the
I've
year.
sunk 1,080 hours into it in the past month. I don't know, dude. I'm just joking, but that game is so addicting.
I am so
That
happy
completely
that
surprised me. You just brought it up randomly. You're like, dude, I'm just playing this game called Marvel Snap, and I've just been playing it nonstop. Well, um, you know,
yeah,
I have to stop.
you have to stop. Probably gonna be playing that on your flight too. Yeah, I mean, I brought that up after I heard about it because people were saying it might be their game of the week, game of the month, and then I
That's
remember
crazy.
once I told you there was no like monetization to keep playing, you're like, all right, I'll try it now.
Not
And
to keep playing, yeah.
yeah, then you were sunk in. So, I mean, again, that doesn't surprise me. There is so many announcements. So the makers of Celeste are making a new game too. Did you play Celeste?
I played like the opening like hour of it maybe because it was like a free download on I think the PlayStation. Like it's in the
Yeah.
PS Plus
Yeah.
free download. And I got the basic mechanics down, but then that game jumps right into it. Like as far as like, okay, well, here's like your general navigation, then you're gonna have to learn double jumps and stuff. But it throws you right into that gauntlet like within that first hour.
Yeah.
Um,
It does not relent. And
I have a respect for it. That came out around the same time as Hollow Knight, which it's that game because it's a Souls-like. I've sunk hundreds of hours into, and I still think that game has like one of the best art direction and musical scores and stuff like that. But no, I never did Celeste because everyone said it's extremely frustrating, even though it's like a great game.
yeah.
But the navigation is so tight and so punctual,
Yeah.
so it can get frustrating. But see, that's a game right there. That game was so I think successful or got so much praise. I'm surprised that didn't get a sequel sooner compared to like Hades.
You know, I don't know if they did DLC or not for that, but I think it's a pretty small team behind it too. You know, you mentioned the mechanics and the gameplay itself. that's a good example about how game design and game mechanics work in the background without you realizing it. Like if you think about the classic platformers we played back in the day, where Nintendo and all that stuff, pretty frustrating. Like if you didn't hit something perfectly, you would
Hmm.
you would die, right? And this is a game, Celeste, that required such extreme, gymnastic ability,
Precision.
precision. But if I've seen some content on this, some discussion about it, they did things in the game mechanics and design that kind of made it easier. Not easier, so case in point, like, you would jump and you would do a zoom dash, right, to a platform. If say here's the platform,
If you touch the wall, like
if you
reset.
touch it right there, it would allow you to slide up, right? Where like older games would be like, oh no, you dropped, you're dead. So they did things like that I think were really smart, because I think in reality it doesn't break the sense of story and gameplay already. Like you should get that because it's already challenging enough. But they did do a lot of slight things like that made the game flow enough to where you just didn't want to break it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that to me is a good example of great design and a great execution. But they're making a game called Earthblade, which you mentioned Hollow Knight. It seems to be the system mechanics of a Celeste with similar visual presentation, but also it seems to be more of a Metroidvania type kind of side scroller. So
Like combat, does it have more combat and stuff?
it seems to be focused on combat. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, like
Earthblade.
yeah, which people were pretty pumped about the logo. I kind of got Earthbound feels mixed with like Link's Awakening. But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's good to see them making something else. He mentioned Dark Souls type games. The official trailer for Jedi Survivor dropped, and that had gameplay in it. Did you see that?
Yeah, so that was weird. I'm looking forward to that game. I'm gonna get it. Unless there's like some shady microtransactions snuggled in there. Like the first one didn't have that at all, but um it's as far as like technical prowess or like such an upgrade or anything, that game just looks like, the same thing as the first one. I mean, there's some extra like combat, obviously. It looks like a little bit more cinematic with the combat.
Yeah.
But that trailer, it wasn't like anything that will blow you away. It's just like, okay, here comes another game. The protagonist is hot now, and you have two lightsabers if you want it. But I'm still, I'm super excited for it. That game, EA made it, so I had absolutely no hope. Then I found out it was a Souls-like, so I gave it a chance. And then, yeah, I played it straight through. It was one of those games where you just like kind of hooked onto it and played it straight through. You couldn't pull me away from it.
Yeah.
So I'm
It
excited.
it got, yeah, the trailer looks fantastic. And I think that's a testament to how high quality of a team Respawn is within EA, that it does look very similar. I think I don't remember exactly, but there were some technical issues when the first one came out with some
Yeah, I
aspect.
think it was buggy for some people, but like
Yeah.
I never ran into those issues. But yeah, it was a little rough.
Yeah.
I think
But
some people haven't played it yet because it was too rough at the start and they gave up.
yeah, so you're that game launched PS4, Xbox One too, so you're gonna see probably
Xbox One, two.
yeah, Xbox One, two, three, Switch,
Don't give them ideas.
Switch one, two, three, four. That's the sequel. So I mean,
Switch now.
you're gonna see probably better resolution and better frame rate on the fact that I think it's a console exclusive for next gen and PC. But I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that they've added to that I think makes sense. Like the part where he grabs the stormtrooper, and he uses him as a shield, and the stormtrooper fires back at his enemies. That just looked awesome. What
Oh yeah,
what
he
I
like froze time and pulled him.
Yeah, that was pretty cool too. And I've seen some rumors, and again, rumors are nothing to really listen
You
to.
little gossip girl.
But Darth Maul might make an appearance. And then something else someone said, again, this might have been Jeff Grubb, something people notice is the first game was more or less like a Metroid Prime 3, where it was open world Metroidvania, but you travel to different planets. This might seem this seems to be one large planet, people thought, where you're just exploring the same planet and going deeper and deeper into it, which I don't know. If you think about the technical capabilities where you have better hardware, you notice that there isn't that much of an improvement in the fidelity of the game. But what that hardware can do more so than fidelity is just give you a bigger environment to fully explore that's kind of loaded there. So
Mhm.
instead of going to a different planet, you're basically going to a different stage.
Only loading
loads.
in that
Yeah.
map. Yeah.
Yeah, so you might actually have a much more open sense of a 3D Metroidvania type game, which could be pretty cool as a bigger dive into that approach.
Yeah, it
So
just looked like I it's the difference between. Did you play Force Unleashed and Force Unleashed 2, I think it was, or something?
bits and pieces of it. I want to go back because I've seen the DLC for the first one and that looks awesome.
It's the same thing where the first game was awesome, and it's like, it was new at the time. You're Star Killer, and you have all these crazy evil force powers and good force powers. It's in the Star Wars universe. Um, but then like when the jump to the second one was just like crazy. Like, hey, well, how crazy anyone have any weird ideas about what you can do using the Force,
Yeah.
in combat. And it was like such a jump as far as the combat being more cinematic and more variable, and you have more options. That's what this one looks like. It looks like a big jump in the combat variability.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess a little bit more of like, were they the sisters? What were those people called that you were fighting?
I forget.
The ninth sister and stuff like that. But what are they called? It's not like Sentinels or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the Inquisitors.
Inquisitors. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
But like this one had like those. Was that a Mandalorian that he was fighting
Didn't
with
notice.
an electric spear? Not
Yeah.
the Mandalorian, but a Mando.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean there's probably a lot. I mean at that time period in Star Wars lore there's a lot of Inquisitors. So it would make sense
It
if
just
you
the vibe I got from that was like that. I think it was a Mandalorian. I can't really remember well, but he had like an electric spear. But that guy seemed angry, and it seemed very personal.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be a cool approach, or a better approach, where these enemies that are reoccurring, like if you don't actually beat them and they just keep coming back and like ambushing you.
like a nemesis system.
If it was like, not even that, but just way more personal. These like mini bosses are like these things that keep interrupting your gameplay. Just to keep like a narrative going, but
Yeah.
that the mini bosses, if they're reoccurring, and it seemed like he was commenting on the fight as it goes.
Yeah.
Which, like, I guess one example is Cal did a move, and the guy immediately replied about it.
Mhm.
And I wonder if that's the same thing. If you don't have that move unlocked, or if you did a different move, would he respond differently? And
Yeah.
it would make it more personal. It would make it more like you're controlling the narrative, and you would have a different experience every time.
That is something that game does well, which is it's a great combat driven game, but the story is meshed extremely well into it too. So
Yeah, and the whole narrative and environment, everything is something you've already grown up with. It's Star Wars, you're in that world.
yeah.
It's,
Which I think gives it an advantage if it does a game well, then people are really gonna love it. Because I think everyone wanted a great Star Wars game since they were kids, right? I mean,
yeah.
so yeah, I'm excited for it. I think that's March 2023, I want to say, or February. I'm not sure
A
exactly.
lot of these are so soon. It seems like everything was so far away, and now it's just a couple of months.
2023 is going to be interesting. I mean, we got Final Fantasy 16, which is June 23rd or 22nd, I want to say. That trailer looked awesome. I mean, that's definitely going to be rated M. There's a lot of blood. 2023 is going to be crazy. Spider-Man 2 is supposed to come out. We didn't see anything about that, but there's a new Cyberpunk DLC coming out. Idris Elba is in it. I don't know if you saw that. It's a new Cyberpunk DLC expansion. Idris Elba plays a government agent named Solomon that you have to rely on completely. So people turned around on that, which again, knowing the history with Witcher 3 and just knowing CD Projekt Red's capabilities, like people seem to be really happy with that game. Have you played that game yet, Cyberpunk? It might be a game for you to explore since you loved Witcher so much, but eventually, maybe not if it's not your theme. But
I need to see. I know that it's crazy as, oh man, I think like one of the roughest launches of any game, current gen, past gen, or anything. I mean, that game was pulled from stores because it was so buggy and so many people were requesting refunds. But I've seen every week, it seems there's a new person giving it a shot who gave up week one and are enjoying it. But like, I feel like that is going to be a big time sink, but I need like overwhelming evidence that no one's having issues with it anymore. And this is the game that I was expecting years ago for the hype and stuff like that before I go in.
Yeah, I know. I think they timed their updates and polishing of the game well because they came out with that anime and people really liked the anime that dropped.
Yeah, that caused a surge.
And people, at the same time, people were getting back into the game because there were a lot more updates. But I played a bit on my PC, and PC was always able to run it pretty well, relatively speaking. And it looks great. I mean, the game, it was no issues to me. I just, there's so little time, right? I would be interested in trying it on Series X or PS5 too, but I think at that point it's pretty polished. So yeah, update there. There's just so much. Remnant 2 has a sequel coming out. That's from Gearbox. You played the first one, right?
Like Remnant from the Ashes? Is it that?
Yeah.
Really?
There's a sequel coming out, yeah.
Geez, that game came out in 2018, 2017.
Was it that? I thought that was 2019, 2020. You sure?
Remnant from the Ashes. Are we talking about the same game?
Same game.
It's like a third-person shooter with Souls-like gameplay.
Yeah, Remnant from the Ashes.
That game was at least out. I think that was like the free game for the month in like December 2019.
August 2019 is when it came out. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. There you go. It came out on console on August 2019. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, there's a sequel to that.
Cool.
Again, there's just so much stuff coming out next year. 2023 is going to be a crazy hype year. Tekken 8.
Kill the Justice League,
which that trailer was really awesome, and I'm glad they did a homage to. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name. This is not.
It wasn't Kevin Conroy, is it?
Yeah. So Kevin's going to actually be voicing Batman in that trailer, which emotional because I mean, people don't even realize it or not, but like that's the Batman almost everyone grew up with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, there was something about that trailer where at first I have a friend who was like, was that Kevin? I was like, I didn't think it sounded like Kevin at first either, but yeah, he's in it, and I'm sure this is the last project he was working on. He might have been sick during it, I don't know, but I'll give that game a shot just because of that, to be honest with you, which is frankly, I don't know how to feel about that in some sense, because I've heard other people that are close to the projects or that are close to the project say that the game itself might kind of be in a little bit of an identity crisis and potentially not be that great, because they're talking about it possibly being somewhat of a like Square Enix Avengers type game, where it's more of a like live service type of situation.
If it does that, I'm not gonna enjoy it. If it has, because these are the same people who made Arkham games, right?
Same team, yeah.
And that game, besides Arkham Knight's little rough launch, I mean, that combat and the systems they used was so satisfying, like the first time you go into it and everything. And every single game that came out, the sequels just capitalized on that and added more to your navigation and the overall, I guess like the gadgets and stuff. I'm trying to think of the word. It's not layout, but no, I'm extremely interested in that just because it's those same people who made the Arkham games. But if it switches to Avengers cartoony live service, then that will be disappointing.
Yeah, and I think a part of it is the two people behind Rocksteady's foundation. So that's the team, right? Rocksteady makes great stuff. Mm-hmm. I think two people behind its foundation left, which was notable. I heard about it maybe a month or so ago. So people were wondering. It was right around the time Gotham Knights came out too. So it was kind of like, all right, we're done with this. We're gone. So people were wondering what's really driving Kill the Suicide Squad, which I'll be honest, the idea of it is interesting to me. A different universe where something happens, not Kill the Suicide Squad, but Kill the Justice League, where something happens with them. Batman in of itself, from that perspective, is intimidating as all get out. So like that was a really cool trailer to see him like, wait, it's he doesn't kill anyone, and then there's just a dead person. You're like, oh
no, he was just breathing. His throat was crushed, but he's still alive.
Yeah, that's how that works. Sure.
Yeah, choking on vertebrae, but he's still alive.
Oh, gosh, yeah, that looks cool. I'm hoping for that. Here's something I didn't expect, and this is one of the things. Jeff Keighley, I don't know if you know, Jeff was in the first Death Stranding game. So was Conan O'Brien. Do you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I knew that. Yeah.
So Jeff and Kojima actually have a pretty good friendship, which I have nothing against. I just find it interesting because I don't know Jeff's background really before the Game Awards, but how he got this great relationship with Kojima. They do a podcast. Jeff mentioned it on the Game Awards. He's like, which I was like, yeah, that's a good plug. But so he got the exclusive access to announce Death Stranding 2, which I thought was pretty. I mean, the trailer looks great, and honestly, I downloaded Death Stranding Director's Cut off PS Premium after that night because I want to give it a try. I've heard people say that the game is really good once you kind of like accept that it's going to be more of a chill game, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and the theme of it to me is interesting. It's very much a game that cares about life. Like you're like sacrificing yourself for this child throughout all of it, but the whole entire theme of the game is we need to realize that we need to be more connected, right? We're all in our little bubbles buying things all the time, but the reality is that we need to be more connected. And that's kind of the whole idea of the first game is that you're
Yeah, I was gonna say
you're
it's the first game too.
you're getting yourself out of this sense of hyper individualism and you realize that we depend on each other, which culturally speaking, give me a big shot of that right now. I think we all need that. So this the fact that they're making a sequel I find interesting. Did you play the first one?
No.
No.
I honestly, it's just like you said, once you accept the gameplay, it's good. But
Yeah.
I couldn't. It just looked like everyone struggling to keep a balance, carrying a bunch of stuff, and then they fall, and then all the stuff falls, and then when they try to pick it up, a monster attacks them, and then it falls again. I'm like, I don't got the patience for this.
Yeah.
I don't.
No.
They're like going up a hill, whoa, 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 stepping on rocks and stuff. I don't have the patience for that.
Yeah. And I think some of the quality of life improvements they made the director's cut helped with that, where people say after you get to a certain chapter and you get your bike and you start to be more or less like focused on building connections in the world, that is when the game really starts to get fun. And that's the part of the game that
And
interests
the
me.
game is procedurally, the trails are carved out based on how many people take
Yeah.
it. So like you're not tripping over rocks anymore.
Mhm.
You're going on a well-beaten path because other people have forged it.
Yes, people
So-
have made bridges or roads for you. You can see that.
Yeah.
You can make things to make the trip better too. That idea in of itself, I remember when Kojima was talking about like, oh, this is kind of like a new genre in a sense, and I was like, all right, Kojima, all right, buddy. But I think he's right. Like that kind of concept, I can easily see being exported and used in different types of games all over the place, where everything you do has a lasting.
Well, you say that, but it's weird how many like small mechanics make such a big difference and then are never used again.
Sure.
Like the Nemesis system in Shadow. How come any game hasn't even bothered to try that?
I don't know.
Another very random thing, but it makes a big difference, was the active reload in Gears of War.
Yes. Yeah.
I just was surprised that wasn't like, here, you're playing a game, you love the action, we have to reload, so you're just going to sit there for 10 seconds. So like they included something to like keep your attention and hit it on the right time. And like I'm surprised it wasn't used. And I think there is one other game that I've played recently that included that.
Those are good
It was a
examples.
PS5 game, so I remember. Oh, it was Returnal. Returnal.
Yeah.
It had an active reload almost for some of the guns.
No.
You can hit that in the middle of the cooldown, and it gave you like extra ammo or damage on the next on the next magazine. But yeah, I think Returnal. I was like, I have not seen active reload since Gears of War, and I'm glad they're doing it here. It's the same thing. This is a game where you're moving around nonstop. You're constantly dodging stuff. They want to add some extra stress in there by if you want to do an active reload to keep going, go ahead. And it was like the perfect game for that to happen. But
yeah.
so what you're saying with Stranding games,
that's the genre. Yeah. I mean, who knows, right? If it happens quickly or not, but it is something that I think someone at some point will look back and say, that'd be really cool to incorporate something like that for us. But you're right. I mean, it doesn't guarantee that it will happen for sure. But
it's the closest thing. The only thing I can think of, and I'm going to keep doing it because I love FromSoft games, and eventually you'll segue into the game of the year. But in a way, Dark Souls games kind of hinted at that idea, because in Dark Souls games, you can walk up to a little puddle and you can watch how someone else died. And that is kind of guiding you on what you're about to deal with or where not to go. And it's the same with the messages on the ground. It's giving you a sense of direction, and it's a community either working together or messing with you because they're telling you there's an item down there and you you jump to your death. But like, that's the only game that's like come close to some sense of community driving you, And then Kojima did the crazy where trails are actually being made by people in the game around the world.
That's such a brilliant point, and I appreciate you bringing up because there's a couple of transition points I can at. But yeah, From Software reminds me of the stories I was told when I was a kid from my dad, where he was like, I grew up faintly remembering in this old apartment we had him playing the original Zelda. And it was one of those things where that game is very much open world. You go and do whatever you want. You're going to die a lot. You don't know where the heck you're supposed to go. but it depended on a organic conversation with friends you knew, where they experience things and back and forth. And it's almost like you took that organic conversation that would happen outside of the world, and with the From Software games, if you place it inside the world, where from Dark Souls is a little bit more linear to a degree than that Zelda was, but it still gives you that same sense of, hey, you should do this, or like, yeah, go to this bush or go here and do this. And I love a game that incorporates even, yeah, it's just the thing. Solo playing games could really take you out of a sense of community very quickly. And the fact that those games do it in a way where it's a great individual game, but it depends upon other people too at the same time, I think that's a brilliant line to dance upon. And yeah, they do that well for sure. So Kojima does build upon that. And I think keeping with the idea of From Software games, there were some big things related to From. So first off,
big things, just like minor things, but like they're big things.
Minor things, right? So Armored Core 6 was announced. Did you see this trailer?
No, but now I want to.
Oh my gosh!
Based on the inflection in your voice.
Have you played any of the Armored Core games?
I've always been interested in, because do you remember? I'm going to really quiz you here. There was a demo on the PlayStation called RAD. Do you know what that stands for? Does that sound familiar at all?
I want to say it sounds familiar, but I'm not sure.
It was called Robot Alchemic Drive.
Okay, yeah.
It was some demo on a disc, I think. And it was like such a cool demo, but it was like, giant machines. It was pretty much like War of the Monsters, but giant machines. I think they could transform somewhat, but it was pretty much like, kaiju fighting in a city kind of thing. And it was such a cool, they did have a kind of transformation, because like after you build up something, there was like a quick animation and you're transforming or something, but it was called Robot Alchemic Drive. And that game, now I should look it up if that game like actually exists or is playable in any means.
It's PlayStation 2 game. I just looked it up. Yeah. 2002 it came out, August 2002.
Oh man. And it was such a cool game. But because of that, I've tried playing like I think Zone of the Enders and Armored Core, because I was trying to like, I can't play Robot Alchemic Drive because I was a kid and didn't know how to spell it. But like there's these other games that look like mechs, and I could like play that. And that's like the only shot I ever gave it. But it was like, I think the strafing, is there strafing or something? The mechanics of that game was so different from the other games that I played, I couldn't sink into it. But did you play like 5? Are you excited about 6 or what?
So I feel like I've had to have touched an Armored Core game at some point in my life, because those games go.
Where did you touch the Armored Core game, Mark?
Probably PlayStation, I would say.
Okay.
I would guess. And I think essentially those. So from what I know, right? I mean, to your point, as a Gundam fan growing up, I was always a big fan of the idea of a mech game, but I think a lot of those games always controlled kind of clumsy, right? Like strafing and all that stuff was always a problem. From what I've heard, people who are fans of this series say that the Zone of the Enders game is possibly one of the most fast-paced games, but Armored Core is much faster. And From Software always made Armored Core. I did not realize that this was always one of their properties. And somehow or another, this new trailer very much keeps the theme of like a Dark Souls type of game at its core, but it's all mech. Like you feel like the world is dying. You feel like there's a dark despair to it. Like there's just,
that's a FromSoft game.
Yeah. So this game just they didn't show any gameplay yet. Now I don't feel like I need to worry about that, because it's From, and people that wanted a new Armored Core already has its big fans. So like again, this is pontification from Jeff Grubb that I heard, but essentially Armored Core 5 came out in 2012. Since that, From Software has hit it big with Demon Souls and Dark Souls, Elden Ring. From Software is a bigger commodity in the gaming space because of those games. So I think Armored Core 6, no matter what they do to it to change it from the original one or to incorporate more Dark Soul elements to it, I think it's probably a guarantee for the best-selling Armored Core game ever. Just given how much bigger From Software is. 6, yeah.
I just realized. Well, I mean, we're gonna get to. No, go ahead, keep going. I'll bring it up.
No, so
we're talking about FromSoft, and I just remembered. I was like, did Sekiro win Game of the Year? And yeah, sure enough, 2019. So like, dang.
Yeah, They win.
For a genre that relishes in difficulty, um, and has like a quite the learning curve, and really puts off a lot of people, which is what we're going to get into with Elden Ring as far as accessibility. It's crazy how much that difficulty of a game and the dedicated fan base and the difficulty curve, how FromSoft keeps making bangers.
I think
Um,
it's an interesting point because personally, like accessibility aside from the idea of like people that have needs for accessibility, I totally get creating opportunities for them to play, and I think that's a great thing. But I also think the idea of a game speaks to our innate desire to achieve something. And that's what made Doom 2016 and Eternal really fun for me, is to try to play those games on Nightmare mode and get
mhm.
angry and achieve them. And I think that also speaks to what the producer of Elden Ring said. I forget the exact quote, but people were like, "Why didn't you put an easy mode in?" And he's just like, "Because I want people to have a sense of achievement like I do whenever you get past these things." And that's the case. Like, I still remember how I felt when I beat the first boss in Elden. It was it it makes you feel more appreciative of the time you're putting into the game itself. You have to really
It's like
master something.
it's right at the cusp of this took too long. And it's just like it's perfect. It's like this is taking forever. I've died 30 times. I've
Yeah.
been on this boss for 2 days. I'm about to give up, and I beat it.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
And it's just like right there at the cusp.
No.
But yeah, that's a. Well, you're not talking about the tree sentinel like right when you pop out in
No.
Limgrave. You're talking about Margot, the first
Yeah.
omen.
Yeah, that tree sentinel, I beat him afterwards and I was just I don't want to talk about him. I was angry at him. But yeah,
But like my friend Mike from the East Coast,
yeah.
he just started playing Elden Ring last week. He finally got around to it because he's trying to go through the FromSoft games. He did 1, 2, and 3 of Dark Souls, um, and he's just trying to build up to Elden Ring because like all we did was gush about, or all I did was gush about it for the longest time. And he's playing through it, but he texted me last week. He's like, "Is this? Am I under leveled or something? Why is this? I feel like I'm not doing anything to this guy." And he's talking about Margot. And then like the next day, he was like texting me how much he was happy he just beat it. But I was like, dude, now you're on to Godric the Grafted, and just hope you like fire and dragons and
Yeah.
a mutual a guy who has a lot of love for it. So
And to that point, the game is more memorable. Remember those moments. And
mm-hmm.
I think that's why it has the opportunity to be more of a game of the year, but even though they're so difficult, is because people that played them, they're like, yeah, there really was nothing else like this. And I think I don't think every game needs to do that, but I don't think games should inherently not be that as well. I think that's something important to game design as well, is that the difficulty and challenge should be something that gives you a sense of reward. So I mean, going from Armored Core 6, which again looks awesome, comes out next year as well, which this game had to be in development at the same time as Elden Ring, so I don't know if everyone was on both projects. Probably different teams there. It doesn't bother me with a company like From Software. But yeah, I mean, Elden Ring won Game of the Year, and that doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, that's what I was wondering going into it. Who did you think would get it? God of War or Elden Ring?
I wouldn't have been surprised if God of War got it. But I ultimately think Elden Ring deserves it more because I think it is a better innovation of past From Software games that keep the core idea there, but expand upon it in ways that are interesting. Where I think God of War Ragnarok, I haven't played it yet. I hear it's great. I'm sure it's amazing. I'm sure I'll like it just as much as I like the first one, if not more. But in some sense, Ragnarok's not really trying to flip what they've ultimately done before. And Elden Ring, in one way, the whole open world aspect is a big deal for them. You know, like that to what we talked about earlier with Hades and like having to keep track of sequencing and story and things that could happen. That can happen in Elden Ring more than it could happen in Dark Souls 1. And you know, all those like there's all right, we don't have to worry about potentially variable A interacting with variable Z because they're never going to touch. There's no way, you know. But in Elden Ring, any of that stuff could really happen because of the order aspect. And I think that to me is a testament to the greater design challenge the team brought upon themselves. On top of just creating a really fascinating world, in my opinion, too.
and an incredibly large world. That
Yes.
thing just kept growing.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think Elden Ring should have won. I didn't really think a lot about it. I always feel like, oh, if there's a Santa Monica, no. Yeah, Santa Monica made God of War. I don't think there's a bias. I just think that there's like, honestly, God of War kind of is unparalleled in a lot of ways. So like a game like that comes out, it doesn't surprise me if it's going to win something because of not only is it great
I see.
character
Yeah.
action, but it excels in everything else that it does: story, acting,
hmm
cinematography. So, um, yeah. I mean, were you surprised that Elden Ring got it?
I was a very biased opinion, like just expecting like that was the best game I played this year. It was
Yeah,
just like I've played all these From Software games, but that game just every corner you go around was just some like it was just so cool. It was a fun experience, you know.
yeah,
And then there's like hundreds of bosses in this game, and like yeah, most of them were memorable. Like I just remember struggling on those fights for so long, but it was so cool. It's like pretty much like a dance at some point.
hmm
But I was after seeing the gameplay and the boss fights of God of War, I just couldn't imagine like I'm glad it won Best Narrative. Like that just makes sense to me. But as far as Game of the Year, you look at someone playing God of War, you look at Elden Ring, it just seems like there's so much more technical prowess in God of War and like um, accomplishments as far as the visuals, the storytelling, the sound design, like all that stuff. Like as far as like whole game package, especially like as a backseat gamer or someone just watching. I just think God of War, if you just show someone, hey, this is what video games look like nowadays, it just looks like amazing. But like you said, it's just like it's a step up from God of War, but it's not like reinventing a wheel or anything
yeah,
like Elden Ring did. It was a completely different experience.
yeah.
Kind of so was kind of Sekiro too.
Oh
The
yes, yeah, absolutely, Sekiro.
compared to like Dark Souls or Demon Souls, it was an interesting jump. But that's one of the harder ones. But the gameplay was mixed up a lot. The combat's completely different actually.
Yeah, no leveling up or
And was
anything like that. Yeah,
Yeah, and so when they do those jumps out of their not comfort zone, but when they do those jumps across mechanics as far as combat and your overall experience of the game, it's crazy that they keep doing that, and it's a wild success, you know.
yeah,
Um,
and I think a part of that is too is because they're making jumps, but they're not wildly departing from what they also like. It's still a character action combat game that's very
yeah,
challenging,
they're not randomly making a side scroller
or
with
a kart racer.
Mario.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're right, like Kart Racer. Yeah.
from Software Kart Racer, Dark Kart.
Demon Souls Racers.
Yeah, which I mean, if they did decide to do that, I feel like probably be interesting enough for me to want to check out. But and I want to say that again, what God of War did isn't good and needed and appropriate because I think that story was so interesting that it deserves a proper ending and continuation of it. But yeah, I just think there's two different things that in some sense are both goods and from a game design perspective, when you think of game of the year and what that all needs to encompass, I think Elden Ring probably is a little bit more adventurous in what it tried to achieve. And intentionally, like God of War, I think deserves all the scores it got. I think it deserves to be as high rated as it does, but because that's what God of War wanted to be. And that's what it was like. That's what they use the Greek word teleos. That's what its end purpose was, what it was directed to do. And
hmm
Elden Ring wanted to be this, and it achieved that really well too. So like when I think about like grading a game, I always think about like, well, what was it supposed to be, and how well did it execute on that? And both achieved that extremely well.
It's crazy the build up to Elden Ring even releasing. Everything they were saying easily could be taken to another studio and be like, "Oh yeah, this is what you guys promised, and this is what we end up with." You know, those type of YouTube videos, like
Oh
what was
yeah,
promised, what we got, what we was promised. In Elden Ring, when all the promotional stuff for me, like the game trailers, everything looked like what I knew to become Lingrave. It just looked like that, and I was like, "How interesting is this world going to be?" Because every single thing I see has this giant tree, and you're on a horse and you're just jumping around and stuff. Like, how can this like I hope it's more variable than this. Like, did they go open world, but it's empty and kind of bland and drab? But it blew that way out of proportion, or
yeah,
like way out of scope. Because all those trailers that were just Lingrave and stuff, that's like one map out of like 12 to 15 different regions. Every time you went through another doorway or another valley, it's just a whole nother map. It just kept going.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like it blew my expectations out of the water because I really thought it was going to be okay. It's open world, but like everything kind of looks the same. It's not the variability that the other ones had. Different biomes and different environments.
Yeah.
But yeah, it completely accomplished that.
Yeah, that's a game I would love to get back to be honest with you. I got pretty far on my Xbox, and now that I've played more console games of late, I think I'm gonna probably load it back up again to make sure I continue it. But I think it deserves that. And I think continuing with that um video game of the year award, the the like 15-year-old prankster. Did you see this at the end of the awards? You know
Yeah, I saw it.
the full story. So he's a Jewish kid who's known for making these types of pranks. Like he's trolled Infowars and stuff like that before, and like gone on their shows expecting something, and he trolls them. Um, and there's a lot of discussion about what he was doing and all that stuff. But just just giving a shout out to Bill Clinton, I thought was not what I expected to have on my Game of the Year bingo card.
You
Which
didn't have that one like right in the middle as a guarantee.
no, and if anything, it makes the Game Awards people go, "What's going to happen next year?" Right? You know, little bit of a sensationalism, but you know, so yeah, Game Awards I thought were interesting. Tons of announcements we probably didn't even cover, and I find that all, you know, I'm just excited for 2023, and I think speaking of Bill Clinton. The last time Bill Clinton was in office, well, the one time Bill Clinton was in office was the last time Microsoft was probably facing an antitrust lawsuit from the FTC for their use of Microsoft Windows. Did you like that transition?
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, kind of wrapping it up, which I think is a continuing saga we've been talking about, is the merger acquisition of Activision Blizzard with Microsoft is now officially facing a lawsuit from the FTC. Again, this doesn't mean that it won't happen. There's a meme going around of Phil Spencer at the Game Awards, and he just was just like, you know, not I mean, just making a normal face, but someone put the caption, "When you're getting sued by the FTC, but you're at the Game Awards." So I thought that was funny. And side note, there was the call out for the new Among Us game. I think that they mentioned some stuff towards, and someone goes, while they're talking about, like, statistically speaking, someone here is a killer, and they went to a bunch of different people. And they went to Reggie Fils-Aimé, the former head of Nintendo America.
Nintendo?
Yeah. And his face was just so, like, I don't know what it was, but I was just like, he might have actually killed somebody. Like,
He might be. He was one of those things where he's like, no one will know. But then the camera cut to him. He's like, how? How do they know?
Yeah. And he just didn't react like in a fun way. He just reacted in a way where he's like, I'm not going to pay attention to this. It was just like,
Yeah, I don't know if I remembered to lock my trunk.
yeah. But I thought that was a funny moment. But yeah, so lawsuits happening. Again, a continuation of the same liturgical litigations and arguments from the UK CMA and the EU. Essentially concerns, obviously, about monopolization. Sony doesn't want to be like a Nintendo, which, again, you know, Pokemon continues to outsell Sony's big games too. The interesting thing about this, though, and I haven't dug into any of the paperwork, nothing's really happened, is that right before this was announced, Microsoft is like making these verbal deals, essentially saying like, "Hey, Nintendo, once this deal closes, we're guaranteeing you the same thing we guaranteed to Sony, but they said we don't want, and they said we won't do, which is 10 years of Call of Duty on your hardware." Which people are like, "How can Call of Duty run on Nintendo Switch?" Which, again, maybe not as the existing form, but Doom is on Nintendo Switch. Like they can make that work. And Microsoft has the resources to make it work if they want. So Microsoft's really trying to shore up the fact that, like, hey, we don't want to make this game exclusive. Okay. And I think Sony's idea, though, still is, hey, we're afraid of this game being on Game Pass, which will just possibly attract the average gamer that just wants to play Call of Duty and Madden to the Microsoft platform, which I could see that being an argument. But also, I'm pretty sure Sony has agreements in place with Activision that would be valid to say, like, you can't put this on a Game Pass service for so many years too. So
dude, I don't know if Sony wants to. You know, if there's just those people that just want a Call of Duty console, that's it. And then, I mean, like, Sony's not really losing someone. I think it's more valuable to have someone who's buying games every single month, not just that single stagnant Call of Duty forever.
Yeah.
You know, player. But
I
know,
think
I understand. The game sales speak for themselves, but it's just like,
it's not only the game sales, it's also the fact when you are a Call of Duty player, you're gonna spend money on other stuff in the game, and Sony gets a cut of that, and it's a big game for every hardware platform. So
mm,
it's a one of the top selling franchises of all time in gaming. So even if you get maybe like 5% of Call of Duty players on PlayStation end up buying other games, if you take that away just from a sheer numbers potential, that ends up being a lot of money. Even if it's only like 1% of Call of Duty players end up buying other games on the PlayStation marketplace, that still ends up being
yeah.
a lot of money that they feel like is worth the fight. I don't know if Sony thinks they're going to win, but I think they're like, hey, it's just strategic for us.
They got to poke it.
Yeah.
They have to poke anyways.
To basically say we want to get as much as we can from Microsoft, which, hey, I can respect that, but I don't know. Yeah, there's so many factors in play. So I think we'll hear more about this come early next year. But again, from what we know, Microsoft's big desire is really King and Candy Crush. You know, now that I have an Android phone, I can get Game Pass on my phone. Which, by the way, this is that kind of full. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, did you see this? Like, this is a Game Boy Advance SP.
No, that's really cool, actually.
You can just stream your Xbox Game Pass games to cloud. Like, there's an app. I download the same app to download games to my Xbox. It's all right there, and I was really surprised at what was just like ready to play. And a lot of them are ready to play, and they also feature touchscreen controls too. So these are Xbox games that are also optimized to play on your phone with touchscreen, stream instantly. And I was just like,
look at this plug you're doing for Microsoft while they're in the middle of a lawsuit.
hey, I just got a PlayStation 5. No.
You're like, guys, look at the accessibility options.
Hey, I just got my PlayStation 5, okay? I just got my PlayStation 5.
That is true.
Which
Sony appreciates you.
Which is maybe a good transition point to what we're playing of late. So yeah, I got a PS5. I've played it twice since I got it last week because I've been so busy. And do you know what games I played?
Returnal.
Nope. I downloaded it though because it's on the PS Plus Premium. I did get that, and I will say that's a great service from what I've seen.
I'm going to say that you bought a PS5 and you immediately started playing Call of Duty.
Yes, actually, that was it. I am Sony's argument in a nutshell.
Yeah, this is what they're hanging on to.
So the first thing I did is I subscribed to PS Plus Premium, and I got on like the first night and just explored that. And the one thing that makes me sad about that service is all of the PSP, PS2, and PS1 games that I just can't download. Like I'm not against the idea that streaming them might
ones,
yeah. But there are so many PS3 games, and I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. I'm like, I have to stream it. I'm like, honestly,
yeah,
not to play Microsoft.
Origins, Arkham Origins, but yeah, it was a streaming game, and I was like, this latency is,
especially with that type of game.
Yeah, it was the game that was the least polished as far as punctuality with the combat.
Yeah,
even on release, if you played Arkham City and did the combat trials and everything, like to perfection, and then you tried to play Origins, it was like it just seemed like every time it wasn't the same punctuality.
Yeah.
You add latency to that with streaming, and the game was just not fun. And I was looking forward to it so much, just replaying that game.
Yeah, and that's a shame to me because, again, not to plug Microsoft, but the Series X, I could go take a game from the original Xbox or Arkham Origins on Xbox 360. I could 360. I could take it from the 360 and just put it into the Series X, and it plays. And not only does it play, but it automatically boosts as much as it can in terms of frame rate and fidelity.
Yeah.
It would do a native. And like that's a technology Sony's missing that they really, really need to get on. Side note, speaking of City, there is a game that was announced that I did want to just bring up here real quick. Crime Boss Rockaway City. Did you see that?
Yeah. No.
Okay, so it looked like a Vice City type game because it was just a crime game. I don't know what the gameplay is. I thought GTA from the sense of it, but it's Miami in the 90s, and it's starring Chuck Norris, Danny Glover.
Oh, I did see that in there. When you said Miami in the 90s, I was like, is this starring Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx? Or...
No, yeah, Miami Vice. No, Danny Glover, Chuck Norris, Danny Trejo.
Oh, man.
Vanilla Ice, and I forget the one lady's name. Yeah, there's.
Dude, you're just naming off random stuff.
There's some lady that
has Rick James Ghost.
there's a lot of names in it, but that kind of blew my mind. But anyways, not to get completely sidetracked, but yeah, so I spent a lot of time looking at the PS Plus premium service, and most of the games I want for the PS5 are on there. Ghost of Tsushima PS5 Director's Cut, Death Stranding Returnal PS5. The only games that weren't on there that I wanted was Horizon,
Ratchet and Clank.
Horizon Forbidden West, and Ratchet, which I get why you would keep those games off of it.
No, I'm surprised Ratchet isn't on there yet, but Forbidden West just came out this year, so.
Yeah, which, side note, I bought Forbidden West brand new from GameStop, and I got it, and it was unsealed. So it was, for all I know, that
could DLC announced.
That did get a DLC announced, yeah. So all those games aside, what I did do is I downloaded Miles Morales, and I played that for about 2 hours the other night. And that's a game that I think is small enough that I'm going to complete first.
Yeah, you can just finish it. You don't have to dedicate 3 weeks to it.
Yeah, and it's a good game. I like what they've changed with the combat, and it's just that's just a great game. That again is a testament to what Sony does so well, which is great combat action games that have great story. You know, and
world building and story.
Yeah. So I played that, and I played Madden, and that's all I've played so far. So I am that core gamer that wants to play Madden and Call of Duty, but I'll also play some weird.
Your Sony's success story.
Yeah, I'm the 5%. Anyways, what have you been playing? Anything new since last week? Or
I was playing this really cool. It's called Travel Authorizations for Korea and the Philippines. I dedicated like 10 hours to that throughout this week. That was a fun game. I didn't really like the narrative overall, but I finished it. Got the platinum. I got the authorization, so that's what I spent my week doing.
It's a quick platinum.
Marvel Snap.
So you are playing that game still.
Can't get away from it.
Yeah, and you're gonna make sure you download Hades and Dead Cells for this plane ride.
I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm so glad we talked about Hades, because that's like the perfect game. Because like the other thing I was self-conscious about was people looking over my shoulder, but like Hades is a top-down, and it's no one from another row is gonna be like, I can't even see what's going on over there.
Why would you care?
I didn't want to play I was thinking about playing Kingdom Hearts, but it's like these two 12-year-olds like, where are you, Kyrie? And I didn't want other people watching that.
You should feel shame for Kingdom Hearts.
I know. I'm just like, no one look at my screen. I want Mickey Mouse. Yeah, but I'll play Hades.
Oh boy. Yeah, download Hades. Download Dead Cells. Those games. Again, Dead Cells, I think, is actually, so Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, they're all running a bunch of mega sales on the e-stores right now based on the Game Awards. I think they're still running. But yeah, you'll probably be able to get that game pretty cheap if it's still running on discount, because any game that was announced, something was announced for it, had a discount related to it for the most part too. So Hades might be cheap. You don't have it. Yeah, and I know Hades I've played it the most on the Switch. I also have it on PC and my Steam Deck back there. I've yet to really play it there, but Hades plays really good on the Switch too. So. All right, sir. Well, you're going to be gone for 2 weeks, right?
I will be back on the 27th of December.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Okay, so
wedding, honeymoon, traveling, family.
So yeah,
food.
Would you be down for a show on the 30th of December?
Yes.
Okay. So we will make sure that happens. In the meantime, I'm gonna have to probably do a show or two without you, which I'm perfectly fine with.
Send me the link.
No. Yeah, I'll keep you posted on the 30th and what's going on. But have a good flight, my friend, and be safe. Try not to get arrested in Japan again.
I'm not going to Japan, so that's impossible. But I will be really close to North Korea, so maybe.
Well,
it's an opportunity.
Geopolitical.
We'll see.
All right. Well, God bless everyone. Have a great week and weekend. Go in peace. And Alex, congratulations on getting married again.
Again, yay! I did it again.
All right.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.